No one's talking about this on the news, but you need to hear this before October 5th, 2025. Because what's coming between October 5th and 7th is not just another full moon. It's back-to-back cosmic events. On October 6th, the moon will stand side by side with Saturn in a rare alignment. This isn't just astronomy, it's a sign of change. And then on October 7th, the harvest supermoon arrives. The biggest, brightest, and most powerful moon of the year. These nights are not normal. The energy will be strong, and it will show itself in 7 strange signs. Most people will ignore them. They'll call it stress. They'll call it coincidence. But you were meant to see them because these signs are messages, warnings, and invitations. So stay with me. But first, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and type 999 in the comments. Right now, the sky is building up to something rare. October 6th, the moon moves close to Saturn, and the very next night, October 7th, the harvest supermoon rises bigger and brighter than any other this year. 2 nights, 2 very different energies coming one after the other. Saturn represents structure, lessons, and the weight of responsibility. When the moon draws close, emotions meet discipline. It's like your heart standing face to face with your past choices. The harvest supermoon, in contrast, magnifies everything. It doesn't hide shadows. It makes them brighter. Why does this matter now? Because these nights invite you to notice what you've outgrown and prepare for what's ahead. The first sign you will experience is unusual dreams. Not the kind you forget as soon as you wake up, but the ones that leave you shaken, thoughtful, or even uneasy. Dreams are often the language of the unconscious mind. And when the energy is heightened, they become more vivid. You might dream of people you haven't seen in years. You might find yourself in strange places that feel almost too real. And while most would brush it off as just a dream, you'll know there's meaning behind it. Ask yourself, what is my mind trying to show me? Often these dreams act like a movie trailer for what your spirit is preparing to face in waking life. The second sign is sudden waves of emotion that seem to rise out of nowhere. One moment you're fine, and the next you feel sadness, irritation, or even deep joy without any clear reason. It can be confusing, almost like being carried by a tide you can't control. But emotions are signals, their energy in motion, revealing the places in your heart that are ready to be acknowledged. Think about it. How often do you silence your feelings just to get through the day? This energy won't let you bury them so easily. Instead, it pushes everything to the surface so you can finally face what has been ignored. And though it may feel overwhelming, it is also cleansing, like a storm that clears the air. The third sign is moments that feel like synchronicity, those small, almost impossible to explain experiences. Maybe you think of someone and they suddenly call. Maybe you see repeating numbers like 111 or 777 when you least expect it. Or maybe a conversation with a stranger hits you in a way that feels like a direct message to your soul. These aren't coincidences. They're reminders that the unseen world is connected to you more closely than you realize. In times of heightened energy, these signs appear more often, nudging you to pay attention. Instead of dismissing them as chance, ask yourself, what message is being delivered here? The fourth sign is sudden clarity that arrives in the middle of ordinary moments. You might be washing dishes, walking down the street, or scrolling your phone when a thought strikes you with surprising sharpness. It's the kind of realization that feels simple, yet it rearranges everything you thought you knew. Maybe you see a pattern in your own behavior, or you finally connect the dots between choices you've been making and the results you keep getting. These flashes are not random. They arrive because the energy during this time works like a spotlight, sharpening your vision in ways you can't ignore. Think of it like fog lifting after days of wandering without a clear path. Suddenly the road is visible. You still need to decide whether to walk it, but the confusion that once held you back begins to dissolve. This clarity can be uncomfortable at first because it strips away excuses. It shows you where you've been avoiding the truth, but it also brings relief because you no longer need to second-guess every step. When these moments strike, pay attention. Write down what comes to you, even if it seems small. Those insights are like keys unlocking the next door in your journey. The fifth sign is shifts in relationships. Subtle at first, then impossible to overlook. Maybe someone you rarely think about suddenly crosses your mind again. Maybe conversations with people close to you become charged, filled with meaning or even conflict. It's as if the connections in your life are being tested under a new kind of light. What's strong grows stronger while what's weak begins to unravel. This isn't punishment, it's alignment. It's the universe's way of trimming what no longer belongs so that space can open for the people who truly support your growth. Picture it like tuning an instrument. Some strings are perfectly in harmony while others are off-key. During this period, relationships reveal their true sound. Old friends might resurface for closure or healing. Others might drift away not because of anger, but because their role in your story is complete. At the same time, fresh connections may suddenly enter your orbit as if drawn by invisible threads. Pay attention to the quality of your conversations. Who leaves you drained and who leaves you inspired? The answers you discover in those interactions are the guidance you need. The sixth sign is unusual timing. Events lining up in ways that make you pause. You might miss a bus only to meet someone important while waiting for the next one. You might find yourself delayed at work, and in that extra hour, discover an opportunity you would have missed otherwise. These aren't coincidences. They're signals weaving together moments to steer you toward places you're meant to go. During September 5th to 7th especially, these alignments grow stronger. Think of timing as choreography. Every step, every pause, every meeting happens with a rhythm you may not always hear, but it's there. When things don't go according to your personal schedule, it's easy to call it bad luck. But under this energy, delays, changes, and surprises carry meaning. They're like road signs pointing toward a destination you wouldn't have chosen on your own. The guidance here is to loosen your grip. Instead of resisting when plans shift, ask what opportunity is hiding in the disruption. Sometimes the very thing you call a setback is actually a doorway to something far greater. The seventh sign is renewal that comes in unexpected forms. It's the moment when, after days of intensity, something inside you feels lighter, clearer, or finally ready to move. Renewal doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's as quiet as waking up with a sense of ease you haven't known in years. Other times it arrives as a new opportunity that seems to appear out of nowhere. A chance conversation, a fresh idea, or an unexpected doorway that opens right when you need it. It's not about starting over completely. It's about stepping into the next stage of your journey with a different kind of strength. Imagine walking through a crowded street where everyone is rushing, noise filling the air. Then suddenly you turn a corner and find yourself in a calm open space. That's what renewal feels like during this energy. It's the clearing after the storm, the pause where you realize you're not the same person who began this cycle. What once weighed you down no longer has the same grip. Choices that felt impossible start to seem simple. This isn't by accident. The energy that peaks between September 5th to 7th was designed to strip away what's heavy, so that you could recognize what truly belongs in your hands. Renewal is also a reminder that growth is not about constant struggle. It's about creating space for alignment. The seventh sign shows you that even after uncertainty, waves of emotion, and unexpected changes, there is always balance waiting on the other side. Renewal doesn't erase the challenges. It transforms them into wisdom. And with that wisdom, you carry yourself differently, speak differently, and attract differently. This is why the seventh sign matters most. It signals not an ending, but a beginning. The invitation is simple. Step into the new chapter with courage because the energy has already cleared the path ahead. The air we move through every day often carries more weight than we realize. Not the physical air around us, but the atmosphere of thoughts, choices, and emotions that swirl in the background of our lives. Most of the time, people pass through it half awake, barely noticing the changes happening inside themselves. But once in a while, a rare stretch of days arrives that presses so deeply it can no longer be ignored. October 5th to 7th is one of those stretches. It asks you to pause, to recognize the crossroad, and to step forward with more courage than you thought you had. Think about the course of your life as a long walk. Along the path, there are stretches where the view is the same for miles, routine days, ordinary conversations, predictable outcomes. Then suddenly the path bends. What lies around that bend is different, unfamiliar, and sometimes overwhelming. You can hesitate, stop, or even turn back. But deep down, you know the bend was placed there for a reason. This section of your life is exactly that bend. It is the turning point that refuses to be delayed any longer. There is something magnetic about a moment like this. You may not be able to fully describe it, but inside there's an undeniable pull toward growth. And while growth often comes with discomfort, it also arrives with the power to rewrite the future in ways you never expected. People often say change takes years. But what they forget is that years are made of single days and single days are made of single decisions. The right decision taken at the right time can create a chain reaction strong enough to alter the entire direction of your journey. That is what these days are about. The choices that shape everything that comes after. When you look back years from now, you might not remember every small detail of this period. The conversations, the meals, the errands, but you will remember the moment you chose differently. The day you stopped giving power to the habits that kept you small. The day you decided to forgive instead of carrying the weight. The day you finally honored your inner voice instead of silencing it to please others. Turning points are rarely marked by celebration in the moment. They are marked by the quiet but undeniable knowing that something has shifted inside you forever. For many, the biggest challenge is not in recognizing the need for change, but in trusting themselves enough to act. We live in a world where distractions flood every corner, where doubts are amplified by endless comparison, where hesitation feels safer than risk. But hesitation is the thief of transformation. To hesitate is to stand at the door of opportunity and refuse to step through. The climactic energy of this time does not allow hesitation to remain comfortable. It pushes, it presses, it asks. It may show up as a conversation you didn't expect, a thought you cannot shake, or an opportunity that scares you as much as it excites you. This is not about grand gestures. It is about alignment. A person aligned with their truth is more powerful than 1,000 people chasing approval. Alignment is when your words, choices, and actions finally meet at the same center. It is when you no longer live one way in public and another in private. It is when you stop bending to match what others want and instead allow your life to match what your soul has been whispering all along. And the beautiful part, alignment doesn't demand perfection. It demands honesty. That's what makes this turning point so important. It strips away the layers of pretending until only the truth remains. Many people fear truth because they assume it will take something away. And yes, it will. It will take away the illusions you've been clinging to. It will take away the excuses you've polished into stories. It will take away the comfort of staying the same. But in exchange, it will give you clarity, direction, and freedom, which is heavier. Carrying the weight of living a life that isn't truly yours, or carrying the uncertainty of stepping into one that finally is. The choice is personal, but the invitation is universal. Everyone reaches a point when they must decide which burden they're willing to carry. Imagine for a moment standing at the edge of a wide river. Behind you is the land you've always known, familiar, predictable, even if imperfect. Across the water is a land you've never walked, one that glows with possibility but remains uncertain. Between the two is the crossing, the moment of courage required to leave behind what is known. That crossing is the essence of a turning point. Some people will look at the water and convince themselves it's safer to stay put. Others will step in, not because they know exactly what's ahead, but because they trust that remaining behind is no longer an option. Where you stand now is that crossing. The beauty of such crossings is that they reveal strength you didn't know was yours. You may surprise yourself with how much you can handle, with how resilient you truly are. When excuses fall away, most of the barriers that once seemed unshakable dissolve the moment you stop feeding them with fear. Suddenly what seemed impossible becomes manageable. The conversation you avoided, the decision you postponed, the vision you dismissed as unrealistic, they all come rushing back, demanding to be lived. And in the intensity of these days, the choice is no longer whether you'll face them, but how you will. There is a special kind of empowerment that emerges when you no longer wait for perfect timing. The truth is, perfect timing does not exist. Waiting for it is like waiting for the ocean to become still before you step into the water. Life was never designed to wait for your comfort. It was designed to expand the moment you take a step, even if the waves are high. That is why turning points are so meaningful. They demand action without guarantees. And yet the lack of guarantees is what makes the outcome so transformative. What you build in uncertainty often becomes the foundation you rely on for years to come. This period is a mirror showing you the areas where you have been silencing yourself. It may bring forward the projects you abandoned halfway through, the passions you convinced yourself were impractical, the relationships you stayed in long after they stopped nourishing you. It's not about regret. It's about recognition. Recognition is the seed of empowerment. Once you recognize where you've been hiding, you can no longer return to invisibility. The turning point becomes real. The moment you see clearly and refuse to go back to sleepwalking through your choices, hope often rises strongest when the night is darkest. That's why this is a climax, not a collapse. It's the peak of intensity before the release, the thunder before the clearing sky, and within that peak is the power to shape your own narrative. Hope is not passive. It is active. It requires participation. To hope is to choose possibility in the face of uncertainty. To hope is to declare that no matter how many times you've stumbled, you still believe in the next step. And that belief is what keeps people alive. Not just existing, but truly alive. If you've been waiting for permission to change, this is it. If you've been searching for a sign that your life can look different, this is it. If you've been wondering when the right time will come, understand this. The right time does not arrive as a neatly wrapped package. It arrives as a turning point disguised in challenge. It arrives as disruption that forces you to choose differently. And once you do, the world you enter will never be the same as the one you left behind. The power of October 5th to 7th lies not in the events themselves, but in the way they challenge you to rise. People around you may dismiss it as coincidence, but deep down, you know the difference between ordinary days and days that carry weight. This is one of those rare stretches, and the presence of the full moon only amplifies that awareness. It illuminates what you already knew, but maybe weren't ready to admit. Now the light is too bright to turn away from. You've reached the threshold. What you do next is the part that only you can write. So here is the challenge. Step forward not because everything is clear, but because your soul is asking for more. Step forward not because you know the outcome, but because you refuse to keep living in hesitation. Step forward because every great transformation in human history began with a single person daring to move when others stayed still. This is your invitation. This is your turning point. The truth about these turning points is that they rarely arrive wrapped in comfort. They come dressed as challenges, interruptions, even inconveniences. Yet beneath the surface, they are invitations to rise. What looks like an obstacle is often the exact door you needed to walk through. Most people miss it, not because it isn't there, but because they're too busy clinging to what's familiar. Familiarity feels safe even when it keeps you small, but the cost of staying in the familiar is higher than the cost of growth. Growth asks for courage once. Comfort demands your life in small pieces day after day. Think about all the great changes that have ever shaped a person's life. Rarely did they arrive with certainty. A new chapter begins when someone says yes without knowing how it will end. You might think of someone who packed up their belongings and moved to a new city, not because they had every detail mapped out, but because they trusted that staying where they were was no longer an option. That's the essence of a turning point. It's not about knowing every step. It's about knowing the next step and daring to take it. This is also the moment when excuses begin to sound hollow, even to your own ears. The reasons you've been telling yourself why you can't start, why you can't change, why you're not ready suddenly lose their weight. They used to feel solid, almost like walls, but under the heat of this energy you realize they're nothing more than shadows cast on the wall. You step closer and they dissolve. What remains is the raw truth. You've been capable all along. The wall was never real. The only question now is whether you'll walk through the opening that's always been there. Empowerment doesn't shout. It whispers. It comes in the quiet confidence of deciding to live in alignment with your inner compass no matter how loud the world outside may be. That is the invitation of this moment, to trust that whisper more than the noise. You already know what is being asked of you. You already know what part of your life is waiting for renewal. The challenge isn't clarity. The challenge is courage. Courage to act on what you already know to be true. At the heart of every transformation is surrender. Not the kind of surrender that gives up, but the kind that gives over. The willingness to release control of what you cannot manage and to embrace what you can. So many people exhaust themselves by trying to control outcomes, timelines, even other people. This period shows you that true strength isn't about control. It's about trust. Trust that if you keep moving forward with honesty, the right doors will open. Trust that setbacks are redirections. Trust that timing isn't random but purposeful. That trust is what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. The turning point is also about identity. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when the expectations of others no longer dictate your choices? In moments like this, the mask becomes harder to hold. You begin to see the gap between who you pretend to be and who you truly are. That gap can feel uncomfortable, but it is also the space where transformation begins. The more you close that gap, the more authentic power you carry. Power not based on image, but on truth, and when truth leads, life reshapes itself around you. What makes this period climactic is not just the changes outside, but the evolution inside. You start to realize that strength was never about being unshaken. It was about standing even while shaking. Turning points don't erase the past. They rewrite its meaning. The choices you regret, the times you held back, the opportunities you ignored, those no longer serve as anchors. They become teachers. The beauty of this climax is that it reframes your history. What once felt wasted becomes wisdom. What once felt broken becomes foundation. And in that reframing, you realize that nothing has truly been lost. It has only been preparing you for. When people talk about breakthroughs, they often imagine fireworks or dramatic signs. But in reality, breakthroughs often look quiet on the outside. They look like deciding not to text someone back because you finally honored your boundaries. They look like choosing to spend time on the project that excites you instead of scrolling endlessly to avoid discomfort. They look like speaking honestly in a conversation where you used to shrink. These small acts of alignment are the real breakthroughs. They may not impress the world immediately, but they shift the trajectory of your life in ways you'll only recognize years from now. And as the intensity builds, the question you must answer is not what will happen to me, but who will I be in response? Life will always bring waves. Some will be calm, some will be overwhelming. You don't get to choose the tide, but you do get to choose whether you dive under, ride above, or let yourself be dragged. That choice again and again shapes the person you become. The tide of this moment is strong, but it is also purposeful. It arrives not to drown you, but to teach you how to swim with power. Hope is the thread that ties all of this together. Hope is not naive. It is revolutionary. It's what keeps people moving when logic says stop. It's what builds futures out of ruins, friendships out of differences, love out of wounds. Hope is what tells you that your story is not finished, that there are chapters yet to be written, and that the pen is still in your hand. In the surge of this climax, hope becomes more than an idea. It becomes fuel. Fuel to push through the fear. Fuel to make the call. Fuel to take the first step into a life that looks more like the one you once dreamed of living. Moments like these are rare, carrying the weight of change and the spark of new beginnings. The alignment above us is more than light in the sky. It is a mirror for growth, a reminder that every turning point starts within. Transformation is never distant. It begins the instant we decide to step into it. The recent moon shift stands as a marker, a powerful sign that cycles are closing while others are opening. Energy has been stirred not to unsettle but to awaken. It presses forward, asking each of us to rise into clarity, into strength, into a more honest version of who we are. Hope runs through this time like a current, urging hearts to let go of the old weight and trust the path ahead. The invitation is clear. Recognize the signs. Listen to what life is showing you and take action with courage. Now it's your turn. Share in the comments the changes you've noticed within yourself. Type "I'm ready" to declare your commitment to this path. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, because the journey is only beginning. The next chapter holds even deeper revelations, and you'll want to be here when they unfold.